17-423.
Council considers motion 17-423, reappointing Paul Roberts to the Sound Transit Board.
Thank you. Staff report?
Good morning, Chair. For the record, Chair Gonzalez, Council staff. Pursuant to RCW, the RTA Regional Transit Authority shall be governed by a board consisting of representatives appointed by the county executive and then confirmed by the legislative authority of each member county. The Snohomish County Executive has recommended Paul Roberts. He's an Everett City Council member to serve a third four-year term that expires December 31, 2021. Mr. Roberts has served on the Sound Transit Board since 2007 and has qualified skills as a former city administrator, public works director, planning director, and elected official. Proposed motion would confirm the reappointment of Paul Roberts to represent Snohomish County on the Sound Transit Board.
Thank you. Any questions from council members?
No questions.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve motion 17-423, reappointing Paul Roberts to the Sound Transit Board.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Sullivan?
Yeah, Madam Chair, it's with great sadness that I oppose this nomination. I've known Paul Roberts for 30 years. I find him to be highly technical and a capable person. In fact, in 1990, in my previous life as a mayor, I served on the mitigation body for the 777 expansion at Boeing, and I say that because Paul Roberts led that effort as a staff person for the city of Everett and the region. I also bring it up because I had to stand up and fight for what was right for my community, and that was what we call the Painfield Boulevard bypass, and it never made the list. And I had the engineering, I had the facts behind me, I had the truth behind me, I had transparency behind me, and eventually I had Boeing behind me. And as a result, out of that process, that was the only project fully funded, 100% agreed to by the Boeing company, out of $60 million. And the reason I bring that up, because it's analogous to what's happening today with Sound Transit. Over the weekend, I was presented on Saturday morning with a striker amendment to the car tab bill that would require that Snohomish County give up millions of dollars of sales tax and construction and give up its right to issue permits related to right-of-way construction projects. That means a lot of things, of course, let alone the millions of dollars in revenue that Snohomish County would lose. We would also lose our ability for site inspections, for mitigation, additional mitigation for the people we represent for neighborhoods. And then, of course, last night I was presented with some alternative language which affected all of Puget Sound. The previous language only affected Snohomish County, did not affect King County, did not affect Pierce County, did not affect any cities, just unincorporated Snohomish County. And I find as a former legislator that extremely unfair. So we appoint these people to represent us on the Sound Transit Board to keep us informed, to fight for our constituents, to fight for their constituents, to fight for the rights. It doesn't mean you have to win the vote, but it means you have to make noise to daylight and make transparent the truth that is out there related to our constituents that will be greatly affected. You're reading now today about lawsuits in Bellevue over light rail. Those people have representation, and they have a public process they can follow through their county or through their community for right-of-way permits, for SEPA, for NEPA, and someone tried to take that away from us. And I'm astounded, quite frankly, after 35 years of service, that anybody in the legislature would think that we would agree to something that made absolutely no sense for us. So that is just one example. In 2005, I was number 2 on a bill in the State House on the Transportation Committee to elect our officials to the Sound Transit Board. This is very meaningful to me because I was on the original Snow Tram board that created the RTA. representation on taxation is very important, very, very important. And having representation elected from Snohomish County, to me, would be paramount to daylighting and making transparent the issues that are before us related to this behemoth organization. I guess the list just goes on and on and on. I have admired Paul Roberts for many, many years. He's a tremendous resource. He's a technocrat. He understands issues, but I just don't feel well served by his representation, or quite frankly, any of the representation we're now receiving on the Sound Transit Board. And now, Olympia is a hotbed of gossip, and now we're kind of being smack talked in Olympia, saying we're not team players because we're the only jurisdiction that won't give up our rights. So having said that, I will oppose this nomination.
Other council members? Councilmember Lowe?
Yes, I think we're all familiar with the difficulties that we're having with the Sound Transit Board and how it relates to the county. I do represent 12,000 voters in my district who are in the Sound Transit taxation area. I do believe the Sound Transit Board should be an elected board from the transit district and not appointed to the board. I could go on for hours about difficulties with Sound Transit. I will be approving the appointment of Paul Roberts to the board because I think that's separate from the issues that we're having with Sound Transit. So I'll be in support of Paul Roberts today.
Okay. Councilmember Neary?
I would echo Councilmember Lowe's sentiment. I feel very strongly that when we have policy-making bodies such as Sound Transit, and I would include Puget Sound Regional Council and others who are making important decisions which have significant impacts on our citizens, that it's important that those officials should be elected as opposed to appointed. So I think that there is a lot of concern about government bureaucracies and sometimes a waste of taxpayer dollars and a lack of accountability. And I think that if we were to elect our representatives, that'd be a great step in the right direction to mitigating some of those concerns. With that being said, I agree with Councilmember Lowe. I think that's a separate issue. We are tasked under law to appoint someone. And I know Paul Roberts. I've worked with him in a professional capacity, have nothing but positive things to say about him. I think he has a great work ethic, and I know if reappointed, he'll continue to advocate on our behalf. So with that, I'll be supporting this motion.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going to support this motion, not just because I made it, but because I think Paul's a really good public servant. I think he's done great work as a public servant. And while all this with Sound Transit, things aren't going great for a lot of reasons, I too believe that should be an elected board. The problem, the fiasco on the car tabs and everything else that's going on down there is just a mess. And the problem appears to be that really nobody's accountable. And the way to make everybody accountable is to have those board positions be elected. So I would hope that we start heading in that direction so we can have some accountability. But as Councilmember Naring said, that has nothing to do with this. And so I'm going to go ahead and support Paul Roberts in this motion.
Thank you. I do think it's important to clarify that our options here are yes or no. If we did vote no, another representative would be chosen and sent through the path to us. I am going to be voting no today. I've known Paul quite a long time, and I really like him. I think he's a great guy. But I am very frustrated with Sound Transit, and as my fellow council members know and have heard, I support direct elections to the Sound Transit Board. The projects they're doing, the size of their budget, the citizens deserve to know who's working for them, or if they're frustrated and not receiving the services or anything from Sound Transit, who to talk to, who to hold accountable. So for me, I think that message needs to be sent, and I also want, in the meantime, while we're waiting for hopefully that to happen, that the representatives from Snohomish County are speaking on behalf of Snohomish County, pushing back. are showing some resistance in standing up for Snohomish County and, quite frankly, banging their fist and saying, hey, we need to see more in Snohomish County, and that we're disappointed. So for me, I will be voting no, just because I think we need some change. And apparently, Councilmember Ryan, you'd like to say something?
Yeah, I do want to elaborate on one thing. I remember when I was in the Mill Creek City Council, and a member of Sound Transit, who's on their board now, came to us and asked for us to support. Mill Creek really doesn't favor a lot of new taxes. So they wanted to, they were actually begging us to please support Sound Transit, and their whole pitch was it'll go from Tacoma up to Everett, up I-5. And so we agreed to that. So you can imagine how we feel now through the years that instead of getting up to Everett when they should have, now we're talking about Bellevue, Redmond, Issaquah, West Seattle, and Ballard. And when they announced Ballard, the former CEO of Community Transit happened to be sitting behind me at this event. His name's Vic Sood. And he leaned into me and said, when did it become Sound Transit's responsibility to transport people from Ballard to Seattle? And also that I believe that we're going to have to build a tunnel to make that happen. And we know how good that works down in Seattle, building tunnels. So anyway, again, it comes down to accountability, and that's why we just have got to get to the point where we're directly electing board members to Sound Transit. But again, that's a separate issue from this. And
Well, I'd like to thank my fellow council members for joining me in supporting direct elections to the Sound Transit Board. I think that's something that I'd like to have codified so we can make sure that message is heard, not just here, but in Olympia and our constituents. So I will look to, Councilmember Sullivan.
And I apologize, Madam Chair. Just one more point I want to make. Over the weekend, it appears, and I think I need to nail this down, but it appears there was an amendment in the last session, the previous to this, that awarded $500 million of Sound Transit mitigation money for education purposes, split up between 3 counties. Snohomish County's portion being $70 million, King County's portion being $300 million. It appears that, and I don't disagree necessarily, that the legislature pull back all that money for transportation projects, but it appears both Pierce County and Snohomish County will not receive its education money, and that King County will. And this creates some divisiveness, amongst us. And, this is a Three Musketeer issue, one for all for one. So I think we all need to make that sacrifice, or we all need to benefit.
But that's an example of where I'd like to see our board members pushing back against that. I'd like to see them down there saying, hey, we should not be giving up our portion unless all of us are. Or we deserve an equitable portion.
Right.
So, and that's what I really would like to empower our board members to be doing on our behalf. So, okay. If there's no more discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, nay.
Opposed?
Nay.
The chair votes no. It passes 3-2 with a lot of good discussion. Thank you all.